If you ever curious about indigenous cybernetics, she's the person to talk to. But that's not the topic of this session. Welcome on stage, Klara.
Welcome. Let's start this with a question. Does anyone know what this is? This is a juicero. It's the Nespresso machine of cold-pressed juicers, or rather the iMac of juicers. It's the most user-friendly and easily cleanable juicer that you find in the world. It's not only a household appliance, it also wants to capture the IoT market. So there's a QR code reader attached to it. There's an app coming with it. And people can buy certain packages that work like in cartridges to press their juice. Every time they press their juice through the QR reader, they know exactly where do the vegetables come from, what is the nutritional value, and the machine also makes sure that it only presses juice that hasn't expired yet. It's very important because the packages only last for 7 days before they expire because it's so fresh. It's a pretty amazing product. It went through 12 different prototypes and had a real big group of engineers behind it. And it comes at a cost of only $400 US. You might think, but it was actually one of the first unicorns in 2017. It was backed up by Google Ventures, Campbell Soup, and other very renowned investors. The only problem was it got into the hands of the first users too late. The lead users actually paid even $700 US because they were so excited about it. And once they had in their hands, this happened. So they were making advertisements that the juicer is so strong it can lift 2 Teslas. Well, unfortunately, apparently 2 hands can do the same job. So the juicer's packages pressing by hand work just as well as the juicero. And unfortunately, that meant quick bankrupt for the team behind this. The problem here was really that they didn't talk to their users beforehand. But what can you do? There's one guy called Steve Blank, and he said, get out of the building. He's one of these Silicon Valley founders who retired at the age of 46, went to some beaches, and then after a few years realized, okay, that can't be everything. And since then, dedicated his whole life towards making other people also become successful entrepreneurs. And this is what he preaches. Get out of the building and find your users. I'm not going to talk more about juicers, but about this whole topic of getting towards to your users. My name is Klara. I'm trained as an electrical engineer. Then I went to the D school, and I'm just a total advocate for working with users. After studying, I first ate my own dog food, and I co-founded a company that then brought electricity to hundreds of thousands of households in East Africa. I really like starting things, so I also co-founded the German chapter for the Service Design Network, a little boutique agency called Lovolab, a PhD postgraduate program called Microenergy Systems, a family, and most recently, the data product factory at DICONIUM. And this is also what I want to talk about today. I want to first provide you a bit of context what this data product factory is about. And then I want to dive into the lessons learned that we got from it once you're in the know about what's going on. Oh, yes, and that animation worked. I'm so happy. All right. I hope in 15 minutes from now, you're maybe a bit smarter around how to develop your own data products or just products in your own company. So that's my goal. Let's get started. This data product factory. When we first started talking about it, this term was coined. And actually, to get something off my chest, it's not a factory. I don't know, like when you think about factories, it's like, yeah, there's these belts and data products are just being shipped one by one out of it. And this is actually not really the case. About a year ago, DICONIUM Data bootstrapped their own first data product on the side. And everybody got so excited about this, while this data product has still an ROI way beyond zero. we wanted to do more of that. And at a very dark bar, somewhere around Kreuzberg probably, this term was coined and it just stuck. So this is what we have. When we then really got into working on this further and finding out, hey, how can we repeat that, what we bootstrapped around building a data product into something, more scalable, more thorough, we did some research. We talked to people, we wanted to find out how others do it, and 3 observations stuck from that research. The first one is that we observed a trend. Companies are actually closing down their post-it splattered innovation labs and start to do more innovation in-house with their own people who have normal jobs. So Walmart, for example, they used to have a thing called Store Number 8 in Silicon Valley, where all the exciting products came out, and they ditched that and started with something new called 4 in a Box. 4 in a Box is really cool. It's one person from business, one from tech, one from product, and one from user experience, and they put these guys together, and they come up with brilliant ideas, like, for example, a delivery service to your home in your fridge. And if you're like me, a working mom, that gets you very excited. So that was one thing we took away. Another thing we observed is, hey, DICONIUM data is really good with tech. And we now even have 3.5 full-fledged lawyers just in the Berlin data studio. So really good with that, but we need to somehow find a way to balance that with customer insights and business acumen to get to the sweet spot in this famous Venn diagram that we also saw earlier at Christoph's presentation. And the last thing we realized is you can't really hand down ideas from the boardroom. No matter how many brain children pop up in these weekly senior director rounds, you really need an idea owner who has time and is dedicated and wants to push through so that data products or any products can go forward and realize, okay, this is what we need as well. That's what we had, and then came 2024. In January, Thomas had a slide deck. So I don't know if I see him somewhere. Thomas has very good convincing skills, and thanks to that, but also thanks to Svanche's goodwill, we were allowed to go and get started with the Data Product Factory, start planning, understanding better what this is about. So then by April, we had a concept and also a process diagram, thanks to Neil, which we then used to get all the other data studios of DICONIUM on board and convince them that we should really do this inside the company. Then came May, and we launched our first call for applications. So we had a SharePoint and an application forum, and we did some advertisement just in our Teams channels and tried to find out, are there any ideas for data products inside DICONIUM that we could leverage? Luckily, thanks to Kerstin and Mahmoud and David and Marcos, we had initial ideas that were pitched, and we got one of the ideas on board. That was our guinea pig, and we could finally get started in June with that idea. In August, in the middle of Werksurlaub, we dared to launch another call for proposals because we wanted to learn more. And then luckily, we got so many brilliant ideas that 6 weeks ago, we decided to get 2 more ideas on board. So this is where we are, and I'm very excited to find out what is happening behind this canvas in the weeks to come. So just to wrap up what this data factory is about, here are our 3 main ingredients that we find most important in there. I talked about the idea owner. So with us, that's someone from us. It's a PO or someone from data science analytics or a cloud engineer that works on client projects and understands, oh, something's not right. There is a pain point, or maybe there's an untapped opportunity. And that person applies. Once he or she is chosen, she gets 3 days a week to really dedicate time on that project. The second element is a structured approach, because in contrast to normal client projects, this tech expert doesn't get to just code. We need to validate the user need and the contextual requirements and all that early on, So there is a structured process based on the lean startup philosophy to really make sure the business side and the consumer side are looked at. Because this is really hard, we also have human support in the data product factory. So there's an enabler unit supporting with user research, doing interviews, doing market research, prototyping in Figma, etc. And then we also just shamelessly exploit this expert of this guild that we have at DICONIUM Data with people who are really smart in terms of architecture or legal topics that we can tap into if there's any questions popping up. So that's what basically about. And I want to now more dive into the lessons learned that we gathered so far. You wonder how can I get started? Actually, none of these lessons learned would have been possible without these guys. Midjourney didn't really get my facial descriptions perfect, but hey, this is Kerstin. She was our guinea pig, our first idea owner who dared to step in this with us in our very bad prototype of not really knowing what this factory would be about and just pulling it through. And then there's Robbie, Neil, and Mitya that you've probably seen around, who serve as the enabler unit and are really there to pull this through. So without you, this talk would not be possible. So thank you. When I prepared for this talk, we're like, yeah, that's easy. We're just going to look at our retrospectives and then put these on slides. Talked about it, and we felt a bit bad. And my first thought was, please don't let Claudia and Uli from D-School see this, because the lessons learned were so obvious, right? It was like, talk to users earlier, prototype quicker, I don't know, look at your assumptions and validate them. And I was like, I can't really show that at a lessons learned session. People would just think it's ridiculous. What do I do now? That was about 10 days ago. It's like, all right. I looked back at my notes from half a year ago when we first started, and I did realize one thing. Oh yeah, sorry, that was Captain Obvious later. I realized that back in the days when we first started, I think a lot of people told us and convinced us in a way that data products are somehow different than products because, yeah, they're very complicated and you need to really look into the back end to make them work. And oftentimes they are like a B2B product and not a B2C product. And yeah, maybe they often involve even AI, and you first really need to make sure that that LLM can really deliver before you dive into, or confronting it with any customers. And I said, well, no, actually, that first phase of the data product factory showed us it's not. The same laws that apply to product development also apply to data product development. And you cannot really leap forward and kind of skip the validation phase and just go straight to building. You really need to validate user needs first. So that's actually an inside joke. I don't know if you know, people is people, also for Ralph, something like that. It's very famous. All right. So I did that, and I was like, okay, maybe I can get my act together and really come up with something useful in these lessons learned session. And I realized I can take two different angles on that. So the first one is very hands-on practical lessons that we gathered in these first 6 months, which I'll share first. One thing that we started using is lean research. I think we termed this term for ourselves. And the reason for this is this. I personally also had to once fill out this, it's basically a thing in VW that you have to do if you want to talk to anyone. So you have to make a whole 10-page plan of who you want to interview for what, how you deal with the data, how you delete data, how you make sure that there's no person harmed in the process. And I get it, it's scary, and you maybe rather don't want to do any user research to not have to go through this. Actually, little data is still better than no data, and maybe there's different ways to also get into that, user shoes. And for us, we realized that review platforms like Trustpilot or forums like Reddit are so useful for finding out about pain points or unsolved jobs to be done or just also some, I don't know, cherished features that people have. And we use this a lot. So if you just have 3 or 4 hours to, I don't know, think about a feature or work on the product, just go online and find real people and their pain points. Depending on the product, that could even be Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it. Try it out. A second thing that we also understood is nothing beats talking to real human. And it doesn't even have to be the perfect future user of your product. In fact, it's sometimes even easier to just talk to someone that you know and you can really gather some insights from them than to talk to your future potential perfect user, because that one very likely just wants to have a 70 euro fee per hour to talk to you, and then you don't really get anything useful out of it. So I don't know, maybe it can be former colleagues of yours, it can be family members, or just people that you meet at a conference like this that maybe struggle, and talk to them. So I think we don't regret any single interview that we did, because it just always helped us to really get out of our own head and start developing products for someone else and not for us. So the third takeaway is fake it till you make it. I briefly shared the Wizard of Oz technology with a few of you in the breakout sessions. I love Wizard of Oz, and I'm going to share it with you with a more easily digestible example, so that maybe you can also take it with you. The basic idea of a Wizard of Oz is that you pretend your solution is already there, and you do this pretension through real humans. So here in this example, the lady in white has a product idea for some LLM-infused solution that helps people who build their new project plans to work with existing SharePoint information. And her basic idea is, hey, we have this LLM and it's a voice-based solution. And every time we, work on a new project plan, we get this extra information that is somewhere scattered in our SharePoint. So she does this. In the next room, there is her colleague. And he's listening into what they're saying and skimming the SharePoint. And every time he hears them say, I remember we had this similar project 2 years ago. I wonder where that is. He kind of instantly searches for it and through his microphone shares the information with them as if he is the artificial intelligence. And with experiments like this, you as a team can much quicker start talking really about features, and you instantly understand, okay, what is something that we thought is maybe important and what is really important. So try it out either with your team, or if it's a bit more advanced, you can also use this for future users that you want to. All right, that's enough of the practical stuff. Let's wrap this up with one more philosophical lesson learned. And that was the thing that I understood. Lessons learned, normally anyone can do it, right? You could just tomorrow try out your own data products factory and you'll probably learn a lot and there would be different lessons learned. But I realized that one thing that was actually the hardest for us is the way we grew up with. And I have this picture here because I think my child is now in first grade. She's 6 years old, and she already gets crushed by having like a little X next to the letter that she didn't write. All of us, we go through these years of school and we learn we have to be right. It doesn't feel good to be wrong. It doesn't feel good to make mistakes. And because we go through this all these years, once we're in our jobs, we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to get caught making mistakes. And this is the real problem that I think we have to crack if you want to develop something new, whether that's a data product or anything. So I don't really have a solution for how you can deal with that. But one thing that we really tried to work on when we first started is to make mistakes great again. So we did that by from the beginning on, we told everyone, hey, don't expect any great data product in 6 months from now. It's actually a prototype, and we will very likely mess up. We also scheduled retrospectives in our calendars early on and, try to just get through this awkward moments of silence after sharing the things that didn't work and kind of continue with that. And one last thing that we didn't get to do yet, but we're talking about all the time, is to really celebrate mistakes, to make sure that not only one person learned from their mistake, but maybe lots of people. And I brought this today for my team so that we can finally really have our proper celebration of the mistakes we made with this little failure award. So this is what I have for my team, and this is what I have for you. And I want to thank you for your time, and I'm open to questions now.
Thanks a lot, Klara. Your chance to win an award. Share your biggest mistake in the recent weeks or months. Volunteers, anybody? Yes, do you have questions for Klara? What's the process in your company to really tackle these seemingly obvious approaches to rapid prototyping? Anybody, please raise your hand. Yes, back there.
Thank you. Very great presentation. But my question is towards the last question. So you said it's good to give the impression that don't expect anything from this in 6 months and the like. But if you look at it from the perspective of the company who is trying to put money and resources into this, this is not the nicest thing to hear because, of course, so how do you balance that in the sense that this is not a waste of your resources and at the same time still balancing expectation?
Yes, that's a good question. And what we didn't say was don't expect anything from this. What we did say was expect us to learn a lot and help us to care for this environment in which we can learn. And the most important part for this environment is that we are free from needing to be successful at the first try with the data product. And luckily it worked. But it's also maybe thanks to the already existing environment inside of DICONIUM that something is possible. So maybe if you work at a very rigid corporate structure where people get fired instantly when they make anything, then there's maybe a lesser chance to continue.
Maybe to build on that question, because now, let's face it, there might be some dire times, even for tech or technological companies in the technology field coming up in the next months and years, where you actually should invest more in innovation. At the same time, as you mentioned, it's very easy to say, oh, do we really need the accelerator? Let's cut. So how do you go in that negotiation?
Well, I mean, for me, I think if you really want to be innovative, you need to create something new. And if you want to create something new, you need to make mistakes on the way. I think we can really create great things with this, but we need our time to build and be wrong from time to time, it will pay off. It's a promise that we make, and we don't really know if we can fulfill it. But when you look at the past, I think time and again, the biggest innovations always popped up when people could just, play and roam freely. And
they cannot promise you what they will end up with, but they can promise you most certainly they will end up with something at the end.
Yeah. And maybe one thought also to that, I think what we also totally underestimated was the dynamics that take part when you try something out like this. So I think immediately it was only like, hey, okay, start the startup product factory, and then awesome new ways of products and consultancy will pop up. And then maybe this didn't fulfill right away, but we got this whole interest in the company to understand better, hey, how can we think about the business lens in our projects, and how can we make sure that we involve users early on? Because also in our bigger projects, it happens so often that something was developed for 2 years, and then this hypothetical business user looking at a dashboard didn't exist. And then that project went to waste. And this is just so much more resources than, I don't know, a couple of €1,000 that you spend because people can't really work on a project for some months.
Thanks so much, Klara. Oh, there's one more question, very, very quickly, because we have to make up time.
Thank you for the presentation. I would like to know what your understanding is about a data product. So what do you mean with this term?
The definition of data product.
Oh, yeah, I love this. When we co-founded the data product leadership team, it took us 3 months to come up with a definition for data products. And my ultimate conclusion would be, you have to make your own definition for this. And for us, basically, I think data products can be a product or a service that works with a lot of data. And that either is related to kind of the data that you use to build that product or the way how this product is kind of dealing with data.
We have an award to give away for the best definition of data product by the end of the day, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Or maybe we can make another
Use the next
session
10-minute break to talk to Klara about this.
All
Yes.
right.
Thanks a lot, Klara.
Thank you.